Hello and welcome to the Fisher Protocol, a channel dedicated to the world's greatest rock and roll band, The Who. The band is a shared passion of ours, and these discussions are more of a personal journey than a critical review. Also, no money is made from these videos, so please let us know we're not alone in Who land by taking a quick second to like, subscribe, and share us with your Who-minded friends. Constructive feedback is always welcome, either in the comments below or on Twitter and Instagram at Fisher Protocol. My name is Ethan. Today, I am joined on the show by Tom and Betts to discuss the McVicker soundtrack by Roger Daltrey. That's right. I swear I'd never do a Roger Daltrey solo album, and here we are. Recently we were in touch with a man who recorded a great podcast about The Who called Discography, and his name is Mark with a C. And he said he liked our show, which was kind of weird to me because I listened to his show so much. You know what I mean? And one of the things that stood out from his podcast was how much praise he gave the McVicker soundtrack. So I wanted to give it its due. I hadn't really listened to it. I heard things like Free Me, but I was very, very, what's the word? Ignorant of this album. I didn't know anything about it. He called it, a Who album. That's not a Who album because Pete and Kenny and John played instruments on it, even though they didn't write. Betts, what's your history, if any, with McVicker? Not the movie, but the soundtrack.
The soundtrack. I had it. I like I said, I think I bought it as a cutout. I didn't play it a lot. In fact, I just didn't. It wasn't my thing. But Without Your Love, I played that one a lot. And I knew there was, the video for Free Me would pop up periodically on, like, I didn't have MTV, but we had something called Rock World that was on late at night, and that video would pop up on it occasionally. Again, I had it. Without Your Love got a lot of play. Other than that, I didn't play a whole lot of it. And I'm sorry I didn't, because we'll talk about that, because I did kind of like it.
And Tom, were you familiar with this album before we started talking about it here?
I knew it existed, but that was it. I had never listened to it. I didn't know anything about it. I didn't know that the band played on it. Yeah, definitely. I didn't even look it up once we decided we were going to talk about it. I said, I'm just going to blind listen to this. It's probably the first thing we've done where I had zero experience with any of it. Yeah, surprising.
And this is great because this is why we started doing this, to fill our gaps, right?
Yeah.
This is a huge gap. Some would say we love The Who, but we don't like The Who. Anyway, not that I hold on to things after 2 years or not. But that's besides the point. I was surprised. I was very surprised. I even got a few earworms out of this and a few songs that I would keep, like on a list of songs to listen to. What do they call it? A playlist?
Yeah.
Playlist forever. One of them, and it was released in June 1980. And it's very hard to find information on this album. The only thing harder to find is, the actual movie, McVicker. More on that later in the year. But it opens with a pretty good opening track, I would say. Bitter and Twisted. Did you guys like it? Tom?
I tell you what, this is... I might be in different opinion here. The first song, I was like, oh God, this is going to be a long album. I don't know. This song just sounds like it's produced different, or I don't know what it is about it, but it just doesn't do anything for me. Even multiple listens, I'm just like, whatever. But maybe that's also because I know the next song is coming, and that's an earworm for me. But yeah, I didn't really care for it. It didn't do anything for me. Wasn't my favorite song on the album by any means. I don't know. It just didn't do anything for me.
That's
the lyrical content is kind of insane.
Yeah.
The lyrical content is very, very interesting. I wrote down, I was like, honestly, it kind of bangs. I liked it. Though it does date just a tad with the synthesizers and everything like that. Sure. Yeah, but lyrically, it's interesting, and I'll let the audience listen to it.
Yeah, and I really only got one track stood out on first listen. This was a multiple listens for me. This is the first time I made a playlist of the things I have to listen to and just played it while I was doing things, which is what I should be doing anyway. So yeah, and some songs grew and shrunk on the re-listens. Just a Dream Away was kind of a big earworm for me. It definitely stuck in my brain. Bets, what do you think of?
I wrote down, I was like, oh, this is pretty. And there's like a George Harrison style of guitar playing here. Roger's vocals, in fact, Roger's vocals throughout this whole album are like really strong, really emotive. This was a really good one, really nice one. So, and I'm with you. This one will probably stay on my playlist because didn't really remember this one, and when I played it again, I really liked it.
And Tom, you said you like this one a lot.
Yeah, same for me. I love this song. I was the first time I heard it, I was like, "Oh man, that was great!" And I went back, listened to it again. I was blown away. And then yesterday, I was working on my car in my garage, and I had the whole album playing, and for the rest of the night, I just had this song stuck in my head. It just would not get out. I was like, oh my God. All right.
Yeah.
It takes a lot for that to happen. Sometimes they're not great songs either, but yeah, you really check the box if it is stuck in your head 5 hours after you listen to the song.
Yeah. Yeah, I like it. There's a couple songs on here I don't like. This is not one of them. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
The song that stood out to me the most on the first listen was Escape Part 1. Because I was like, oh man, this song is pretty rad. Let's get into some lyrics. And they never came.
Yeah.
And what did come? Of course, a pan flute solo.
It's some Ron Burgundy jazz flute, definitely.
Yeah.
All over here. I was like, what the hell?
But in the end, it really reached 1994 Daltrey Sings Townsend Overture vibes to me. And I love that. So, I mean, I liked Escape Part 1.
I wrote down that it was a very Who era with that sort of later Who It's Hard Face Dance's kind of percolating synthesizer it had in there. So
yeah.
I agree.
Now that we're talking about, all I hear is that the flute. Anyway, Tom.
It sounded very Pink Floydy to me. If you told me David Gilmour was involved in it, I wouldn't have been surprised.
A little One of These Days action.
Huh?
A little One of These Days at the beginning.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah, to go from the first song to the second song to this one, I was like, what is? I mean, obviously it's a soundtrack. I get that, but I was like, we're all over the place here.
I wonder what's going to happen during that scene in the movie, which I'm going to watch soon. I wonder what happens when this is playing. I just don't know.
Got to be a chase or something, right?
Escape. Perhaps. No spoilers.
No spoilers. Beth's White City Lights.
White City Lights. Let me find that. That was a pretty one, and again, it was one I'd add to my playlist. It had a real Elton John feel to it. Does that make sense?
It does.
Yeah, there was a really Elton John vibe to it, which I really liked.
It's funny you said earlier that previous song had a George Harrison solo, because I wrote that for this song.
Same. Yeah, I was gonna say Beatles all the way in the middle of the solo.
Yeah.
I saw a dark rosewood Telecaster as it was playing. You know what I mean? It also sounds like folk music I used to see in the 80s, in the early 80s. It sounds like that at the beginning.
Yeah.
Tom, do you like it?
Yeah, I liked it. Beautiful song. Love the guitar solo. Definitely thought, yeah, this is a Beatles song or George Harrison, or however you wanted to spin it. But yeah, I liked it.
All right, now we get to Free Me, which is the main reason why I probably didn't listen to this soundtrack. Okay. We got a movie with Roger Daltrey with him screaming free. I'm just like, all right, it's been done. It's been done better than whatever this is. The video is not good. I'm not really a fan of the song. I do like the bass in the middle, of course, but I don't know. What do you guys think, Tom?
I was for it. I had nothing against it. It's definitely a little bit more like theatrical singing. You know, he's really stretching, stressing his voice and really trying to go after it. But I appreciate that. I got nothing wrong with it. It didn't leave a bad taste in my mouth or anything. It was okay. That's what you think.
I wrote in capital letters "scream." He does some screaming, and I remember the video. Like I said, the video got a lot of play on our version of MTV, which was Rock World. And I always felt like he was just yelling at me. It's not anywhere near my favorite song on this record at all. I don't like it.
I mean, like, you ever like picture like Pete's like, all right, we got Who films and we need to pump it up a little bit, so we'll play on it. And he gets these songs and he's like, all right. You know what I mean? Like, I just don't know how it works. Like, I'll get it.
Yeah. I think he was on a lot of substances.
He was.
So yeah. So probably made it a little easier.
My favorite song on the album by far is My Time Is Gonna Come. It's got that bass.
Yeah.
It's the one that sticks with me the most. It's the one that's going on a playlist the most. Tom?
This is definitely one of those songs. Again, I went in this completely blind. I didn't know anything about the album other than Roger Daltrey sang on it. And I was listening to it. I was like, one, this sounds like it could be a John song, and two, that sounds like it could be John. And then like I finished the album, and then I looked up, like I did some homework on it. I was like, oh, okay. Like a lot of things up to that point, through the album made sense. Then I was like, okay, I get it. Yeah. Good song though. I like it.
Yeah.
I said it sounds like Batman, and then I was like, no, it sounds like reverse Batman.
It does.
It has that Batman feel, which of course the Who did the Batman theme back in the 60s, so it's very Batman-esque.
This morning I just came across Bullet by Infinite Mass.
Oh yeah.
That. I don't know if you guys have ever heard it. It's basically a remix of this song that came out in 2001.
Yeah.
And it's amazing.
It's good.
They use Roger's vocals. They use the bass line over and over again. And it's great.
Yeah.
So, someone else heard it and was like, that's awesome. Let's do that. So that's good. All right. So now we have the first best song with the word waiting and a friend in it by a British band. Okay. Waiting on a Friend on the McVicker soundtrack. You know what I'm saying, people. You know what I'm saying. I said it starts out folky, turns into surprising country type vibe. And if it is Kenny Jones on this track, he kind of stands out because it's kind of it doesn't match the rest of the song. I assume it's Kenny Jones. It sounds like Kenny Jones, but the rest of sounds like a country folk thing. But I liked it. That's
I like. Oh, sorry.
Go ahead.
I liked it too. Yeah, definitely like the twangy guitars and the kind of layered vocals, and yeah, fun little song. I could see Roger doing more like that if he wanted to. He'd be well at home in there.
Yeah, it's jaunty. It's kind of fun and jaunty, and kind of gallops along. It's all right. It's perfectly fine.
Yeah. I mean, we could talk about Escape Part 2. I liked Escape Part 1 way more. There's way more less attractive flute on it.
Yeah.
Oh, I made it. Yeah, I think in my notes, I was like, let Lizzo play.
Right. On James Madison's clear flute and
exactly. Let Lizzo play on Escape Part 2.
Yeah.
Sure, no one can about that.
Yeah. There's a real Rick Wakeman vibe to this song, though. There were parts when those keyboards came in that felt like they would have belonged perfectly on the Six Wives of Henry VIII, and there's my Rick Wakeman mention for the day. The very Wakeman-esque keyboards on this one.
If we do start a Patreon and people want me to listen to, yes, I will. Okay.
You have to pay you to listen to them.
Without Your Love, Bets.
Okay, so when I had the album, I literally etched a groove into this song because I loved it so much. It is so pretty, and I don't know. It's just a really, really, for me, it's the best song on the record by far. It was the single that was released for the album. And I want to go back for just a hot minute and say, as much as this album was shoved into the memory hole and we literally couldn't find anything on it. I mean, I told you guys, I went through every book that I had about the soundtrack. Roger doesn't even talk about the soundtrack. And surprisingly enough, it got to 22 in the US on the US charts. So, like, I don't know why it's just, lost. But this song was the single, and it's beautiful. It's catchy. It's beautiful. It's definitely one of Roger's best in terms of his solo music. I love it. Absolutely love
it. Tom?
Yeah, I feel the same. If there was one song that I'd possibly heard before, it was this one. I didn't have a distinct memory of it by any means, but I'm like, oh, this kind of sounds familiar. I don't know where I would have come across it in my music travels, but yeah, again, beautiful song, love it. Not the earworm that Just a Dream Away is for me, but definitely still really good.
Yeah, that's how I feel, and I'll have to go listening to you guys talk about it. I'll have to go give it a re-listen because it didn't stand out to me, so I will give it a re-listen.
I tell you, once I started playing it again, I listened to it probably about 10 more times.
Right.
It's gorgeous.
Nice. And it ends on the song McVicker, which is, I don't think appears in the song lyrically. I liked it, my awesome comment is it's not the worst on the album.
Nice. I think it's a proper finish to the album. It kind of sounds like thematically like an ending. Yeah, it was good.
I wrote down that it had kind of a quad feel to it, quadrophenia feel to it, and definitely I think that's John's bass in there. Mm-hmm. But it was reminiscent of quadrophenia.
To your point about earlier, reaching 22 and people can't find anything on it.
Yeah,
it seems real product-y to me. Like I was saying before, like it seems like there's some kind of synergy between the Who films arm of things that was doing quadrophenia at the time, just Roger starring, the Who playing kind of thing, and maybe that's why. I don't know. I don't think Roger does anything from it when he does solo stuff either.
Yeah, really, because these are some solid songs. The record was much better than I thought it was going to be.
Overall, I enjoyed the record much more than I ever thought I would.
Yeah. Same.
Tom, do you agree?
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. Again, I don't know what it is about the first song. It just doesn't do it for me. But yeah, I put that first one on. I said, oh, God. And then like after that, it was just like a breath of fresh air and incredible. So
yeah.
It really reminded me of Had Enough, just because that's a song that I had to listen to a lot before I liked it as an album opener to Who Are You?
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So when I was listening to it, I was like, all right, you have to keep giving it chances, which I did. And so, yeah. And that might not jive with what I said on the Who Are You podcast, so I don't know. So it might be totally different, but I'm not going to listen.
You're a different person.
I'm a different person then. That's true. Yeah, Bets.
I like Had Enough.
I do too. But what I'm saying is, it took me listens of Who Are You to get into a lot of things.
Interestingly enough, though, Had Enough was featured on an episode of WKRP in Cincinnati.
I have so much to say about that show. I won't go into it. They did a episode after
they did.
Yeah.
It was intense. It was really intense. Yeah.
And they had some weird episode where like Pink Floyd Animals was playing over it, but it was a weird, different version of Pink Floyd Animals because they couldn't actually pay for Pink Floyd Animals. It was so weird.
Michael DeBar was on an episode. He was a punk rocker and he was horrible. I mean, he was great as a horrible punk rocker. Right. And the band was called Burnt Toast.
This actually opened the door for me to being a little bit more open to some other Roger Daltrey things. Mm-hmm. Mostly like the later things. Yeah. The much later things, like the last two. As Long as I Have You, and I forgot the other one was Certified Rose, or I don't know. It's on there. Anyway, that's it. It's McVicker. We liked it. A thumbs up. Thumbs
Yeah,
up for
yeah.
McVicker. You should check it out. Any record store you go to, it's only $5 or $6. Trust me, I thought I had it. I didn't. I need to go get it. All right, guys. We'll be back. Bye.